thank you to all my subscribers for coming back and supporting the channel. And if you're new here, welcome. So for this month, we are studying Africa and more specifically Egypt. So this book list will be almost completely about Egypt. I will have 2 books that are not about Egypt. And so let's get started. So the first book that I want to share is A Child's Introduction to Egyptology, Mummies, Pyramids, Pharaohs, Gods and Goddesses of Ancient Egypt. This is an excellent book. It is your basic history of Egypt. My daughter's in 1st grade, and so I could read this to her, but this would really be good for children, I would say up to like 3rd or 4th grade even. And the part of this book that my daughter liked the most was, of course, learning about all of the ancient gods and goddesses from Egypt. She just loved this, learning all of their names and the stories. There's a few of them that have stories related to them, and she just loved it. And this book also includes some activities throughout the book that your kids can do if that's something that you're interested in. The next book, when I saw this one, Cat Mummies, I said I have to get that one because I knew my daughter would be very interested in it, and she definitely was. And so this book is all about cats and the importance of cats in ancient Egypt, and it just goes through a little bit of history about cats and animals in Egypt and how cats were taken care of and seen as a special type of animal. And it talks about, chapter 2 talks about cat worship, and yeah, it gives like a little bit of history in here. Now, it's not a long read, but it is quite a lot to read on the inside, and I wasn't sure if my daughter would be interested in this, but we read the whole thing, and she was like very focused on what I was saying because, well, she likes cats so much. So if your children like cats or you think they'd be interested in animal mummification, definitely get this book. The next 3 books are art and project type of books. This one is called Cooking in World Cultures, Food and Cooking in Ancient Egypt. This is an excellent book. My daughter liked this as well. I say it's an excellent book because they actually have a lot of really good information about agriculture and farming and how people lived in ancient Egypt. And of course, the best part of all is that throughout the book, they give you some different recipes that you can make. And this is like a typical ancient Egypt breakfast, but they said that people nowadays would also eat this for breakfast. And these are very simple recipes. We did make one recipe out of this book, and it was for the chicken kebabs. That was what my daughter wanted to try, and it turned out so good, guys. I wanted to like do a little video when I made them so I could put it on my shorts and show you, but I forgot, and we ate them all. But it was like such a big hit that my family wants to have it again for dinner. And yeah, my daughter loved it, and I think it's great that she was willing to try something new. And for those of you out there who don't eat meat, maybe you're vegetarian, I also made kebabs from chickpeas. Now that I did have to look for a recipe online, but that also turned out really well and was a big hit. So great book. Now this one is called Craft Like the Ancient Egyptians, and the other one craft book I have is The Ancient Egyptians Dress, Eat Right, and Play Just Like the Egyptians. And both of these are really good books. They have such wonderful ideas. This one, I think I like the crafts in here a little bit more, but I like how this one is laid out, and the instructions are very, very easy to follow because you can follow just by looking at the pictures. Now this one does have pictures in it, but the instructions aren't so well laid out. This only has maybe like 1 or 2 photos with the instructions, where this one has a lot of photos. So kids that maybe aren't reading, this is more like, probably 3rd grade level type reading. They can at least follow with the pictures, and you can help them, of course, make the crafts. But so many good crafts in these books, so I definitely recommend both of these. And I'm pulling the majority of our craft and STEM ideas from these 2 books. So take a look at my shorts. If you can't get a hold of these books, you can look at the shorts that I make and kind of follow along. These next 2 books are about people. They made important contributions to ancient Egyptian history. And the first one is Of Numbers and Stars, the story of Hypatia. It looks like Hypatia to me, but I believe it's pronounced Hypatia. And this is, I would say, my favorite book out of all the books that we've read. There's so many good ones, but I really love this one. And it's about a little girl who grows up in ancient Egypt, and her father is a scholar and a teacher. And back in those days, girls, they weren't looked at as scholarly, and they usually didn't go on to get any higher education. But because her father was a scholar and an educator, he taught his daughter, and she learned to ride horses, and most women didn't ride horses back then. And so when she became an adult, people from all over, not just Egypt but other countries, would come and seek her advice. And it talks about how she learned about astronomy and math and map making and things like that. So really good book. My daughter enjoyed that. And then this one was also very good. It's called The Seeker of Knowledge, the Man Who Deciphered Egyptian Hieroglyphics. And this book was about a French boy named Jean-Francois Champollion. Excuse me if I did not pronounce that right. I don't speak French. But so when I opened up to the first page and my daughter learned that it was about a French boy who deciphered hieroglyphics, boom, instantly she liked this book, because I told you she has like a fascination with France. And so yeah, it's all about this young man who from the time he was a boy was very fascinated with ancient Egypt and hieroglyphs, and he said to himself and to others that one day he would grow up and he would decipher hieroglyphics. And that's exactly what happened. And so this book is all about his story and how he came to go to Egypt, and how he learned to decipher hieroglyphics, and that he studied different languages to be able to do that. And it talks a little bit about the Rosetta Stone, and it was just an excellent book, and my daughter really liked it. And I also like how on the different pages they show you different actual hieroglyphics and the things that he deciphered and what they mean. The next 6 books are storybooks. So this one is called Bill and Pete Go Down the Nile, written and illustrated by Tommy DePaola. And so this is a book about a little crocodile and a little bird, and they live in Egypt and they go to school. And one day the crocodile and the bird go to school and they go on a field trip down the Nile. And then when they come home, the little crocodile tells Mama Crocodile all about his adventure down the Nile and what they learned in their class. And it was a really cute book. My daughter liked it. I think it's fun for first grade kids. The next book is called Crocodile, and it talks about these 2 little kids who have like a pet crocodile. And the children grow up in ancient Egypt, and they learn to be artists, and it kind of shows you like a little bit about their life doing art. And they end up in a city in Egypt where the Pharaoh lives with his queen, and they're asked, because they're such good artists, they're asked to make statues and art for the Pharaoh, and the Pharaoh likes them very much, as well as the queen, but they had been kidnapped, and so they had been away from their family for a while, and their crocodile in the end comes back to get them, to save them, and bring them back home to their family. And so this was a pretty good book, and of course my daughter liked this as well. The next book is called Temple Cat. So when I saw this, yeah, I was like, gotta get that, because of course my daughter likes cats. And so she liked this story. Wasn't our favorite, surprisingly, but it is about cats in ancient Egypt and the way that people worshipped cats. And so this follows a cat who lives in a temple, and what a cat's life would be like living in a temple in ancient Egypt, and the things that they could and couldn't do. And they actually didn't let them do very much. They were very pampered, but this cat is always looking out across the city and kind of wishing that he didn't live in a temple. And at the end, the cat runs away from the temple and ends up in a fishing town, and he's found by a fisherman and his family, and the kids take him in as well as the fisherman, and he actually enjoys his life way more being just a regular old cat than a temple cat. The next book is called Egyptian Cinderella, and this is about a slave girl from Greece who's taken to Egypt. She becomes a slave in ancient Egypt, and it is the story of Cinderella with some ancient Egyptian history thrown in. And of course, she's got like these 3 women who are also servants, but because she's a slave, they're mean to her, and they end up being called to a royal feast. And so they go to this royal feast, and the slave girl Rhodopis, her name's Rhodopis, she's not allowed to go because she's a slave. And then she was given these golden shoes, and she's down by the river washing laundry one day, and this great falcon comes and takes one of her shoes and takes her shoe to the Pharaoh. And then the Pharaoh has to find the girl who fits the shoe, because he believes he needs to marry her and she needs to be the queen of Egypt. And so that's what happens. And then at the end, the Pharaoh finds Rhodopis, and Rhodopis becomes queen. Now, the interesting thing about the story is that it is a partially true story, and that the Pharaoh in this book was a real Pharaoh, and he really did marry a slave girl from Greece who became queen of Egypt. The next book is called The Winged Cat, A Tale of Ancient Egypt by Deborah Norse Ladmore. And this was a really good book. My daughter really enjoyed this. I enjoyed it too. And I absolutely love the art in this book. I think that's what makes it so special, and my daughter really liked the art too. But what this book is about a cat who passes away, and the cat has to go on this journey to the next life, to the afterlife. And there is a woman who goes with the cat because she saves the cat from drowning, but unfortunately the cat died. And this guy's the guy who threw the cat into the Nile River. And so she goes with the cat to try to take the cat, to its journey through the afterlife. And so it's just like this mythical story about how they get on the boat and all of the things that they encounter. And it talks a lot about the process of what ancient Egyptians believed a person or even an animal like a cat would have to go through to make it to the afterlife. And it talks about like the weighing of the heart. That's a ritual that the gods and goddesses of ancient Egypt would do, and they would weigh a person's heart, and if the person's heart was lighter than a feather, then they were a good person and they would, be blessed in the afterlife. And if the heart was heavier than a feather, then they had done something wrong and they would be punished in the afterlife. And so, yeah, it's just a very interesting story with some good information about the beliefs of ancient Egyptians. And then the last book is our favorite book, and it is called The Lion and the Little Red Bird. Now, this book is not about ancient Egypt, but it is about Africa. It has a lion in it, and so that's why I got it. And when I got it, I was so happy I did, because this is my daughter's favorite book out of all of the books. And it's about this little bird and a lion. And the little bird one day sees a lion with a green tail, and she thought it was so unusual and so beautiful. And she just wanted to know, like, why was this lion's tail green when everyone else did not have a green tail? But the lion didn't speak bird talk, and so the lion would just smile, and the bird and the lion kind of hung out. And the bird sees that the lion goes into the cave, and then the next day the lion's tail had changed from green to orange. And then, like every day, the lion's tail changes, and the bird is, wondering how is he changing the color of his tail, and she wants to find out. And then eventually a storm comes, and the lion takes her into the cave, and she gets to see why the lion's tail changes colors. And it turned out that the lion had been making cave paintings in his cave the whole time. And then the lion draws a picture of his friend, the little bird, and it makes the little bird so happy. She sings a beautiful song, and that beautiful song also makes the lion happy and inspires the lion. And we just both thought it was a beautiful story, and we've read this probably a half a dozen times. She just loves this story. And then as a bonus, I wanted to mention this book called The River That Went to the Sky, 12 Tales by African Storytellers. So this is a combination of stories told or written by people across Africa, and I thought this would be a really great book to incorporate. I have not read this myself, but my husband started reading this to my daughter, and the first story is called The River That Went to the Sky. And from what they told me, the river wants to go meet the sky. He wants to go up into the sky, and they haven't read the whole story yet. But basically, my husband thinks that the river will be able to meet the sky and go up to the sky, like maybe through evaporation. So I thought that was really interesting, and I think that this could be a really good storybook. And it may even incorporate a little bit of science into it, at least that story anyways. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this book list. I hope you have fun learning about Egypt and that you can incorporate some of these books into your learning. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.